Game 2 of the NBA Finals came down to the final minutes of the fourth quarter, and as most of us expected, well, LeBron James and the Heat answered back.
He's the most polarizing player in the NBA. Sunday, he showed why he's the best. Game 2, Heat Spurs from San Antonio. The air condition was fixed, so was LeBron James. Some pretty humorous signs in San Antonio from the Spurs fans. The heat was off in the building in Game 1. But the heat was also off on the floor in portions of Game 2. There's LeBron James looking for the and one. But he and the rest of the team struggled in the quarter. Just 1 of 4, 3 turnovers in the opening quarter was LeBron James. The Heat defense also allowed Tim Duncan to get free for the putback. 28 and 15 for Duncan, tied with Magic Johnson for most double-doubles in playoff history. A little bit later, Tony Parker passes. You see Mario Chalmers losing track of Parker, who hits a corner three. San Antonio led 26-19 after 1. But Miami comes charging back in the second quarter. San Antonio turned it over 11 times Sunday, down from Game 1, but still this one's costly. Dwayne Wade barely beats Kawhi Leonard. And then James in attack mode. Miami down 30-26. Good sequence here. Dwayne Wade loses the handle. Watch Chris Bosh cutting to the hoop without the basketball. And one. Miami 44 points in the paint. San Antonio 34. We were tied at 43 at the break. LeBron James dominated in the third quarter. That's good over Kawhi Leonard. Then he hits his second consecutive field goal to start the second half. He was 3 of 3 from beyond the arc. Boris Diaw not quick enough to stay with him, so he gives him room and pays for it. Now in transition. That's good. Miami has a 2-point lead. 6 buckets in the first half for LeBron James. He had 6 in the third quarter alone. 6 of 7, 14 points in the third quarter. Miami has a 5-point lead. Greg Popovich with Doris Burke on LeBron.
Pop, what are your objectives where LeBron is concerned?
Are you serious?
I know.
We're going to keep him from scoring.
What would you like to see here in the fourth?
I like to see LeBron play poorly.
Sorry, Pop, didn't happen. Fourth quarter, Miami down 2. James beating the shot clock. We're tied at 85. Shortly after, Mario Chalmers with the most electrifying move in the NBA. The people's elbow into the ribs of Tony Parker. Flagrant foul called on Chalmers, so that's 2 free throws for Parker and possession of the ball. He missed both free throws before coming out. Later in the fourth, 87-85 San Antonio. James over Leonard to put Miami up 1. Boris Diaw corner 3. Get it, got it, good. We're tied at 90. He had 7 and 10 off the bench. Tony Parker, so much room for activities. He had 21. James is like, dudes, you guys got to close out. Now, under 90 seconds to go, LeBron James in the corner to Bosh. That's the shot he missed against the Pacers. This time, he makes it. You see LeBron James watching Tim Duncan cheating over towards him. That leaves Chris Bosh wide open for the three-pointer. 18 for Chris Bosh. Bad turnover. Manu Ginobili. Right idea, poor execution. Now LeBron James, strong to the cup. He's fouled. Makes just 1 of 2. That's the only free throw he missed. So it's 96-93 Miami. Manu Ginobili. Off the mark, and Boris Diaw can't save it. So Miami's ball. Now, on this possession, no fouls to give. About a 5-second differential between shot and game clocks. San Antonio elects not to foul. They just want to play good defense. Boris Diaw, you see him lose his sight of Dwayne Wade not once but twice. The second time really hurts. It's Chris Bosh. Puts it on the deck, goes by Duncan, and LeBron James. It's a good thing the referees didn't see this. He called timeout or was signaling for the timeout, didn't get it. 35 and 10 for LeBron James. Dwayne Wade had 14, Chris Bosh had 18. And just like last year's NBA Finals, the Miami Heat dropped Game 1 before winning Game 2, 98-96. They have won 13 in a row in the playoffs following a loss. LeBron James enjoying his 30th career 30-point, 10-rebound playoff game. Miami has won at least one game on the road in 16 straight playoff series. That's the longest such streak in NBA history. Here's LeBron James talking about the big win.
You know, for me, the ball is in my hand, and I'm going to make the right play for our team. And, you know, and to have that trust from my teammates that they know when I got the ball, I'm going to make the right play. Doesn't mean it's going to go in, doesn't mean it's going to result in a win, but they believe in my ability to do that. And I got a lot of confidence in my teammates, and they got a lot of confidence in me. And, you know, we live with the results no matter what happens.
Just me knowing how LeBron is, you always have to be poised and ready to shoot the basketball. He's the most unselfish player I've ever played with. And especially with the talent that he has, that's what makes this team special, because your best player is willing to sacrifice a shot, a good shot for a great shot. And, you know, you just have to commend him for that.
We haven't discussed that kind of thing since the first year. It's the theater of the absurd when you're dealing with what plays he makes in the end of the game. He makes the right basketball play. We trust him to make the right plays, and we know the process is right. Make or miss, it opens up for noise from outside.
LeBron James started off slowly, kind of like his finish in Game 1, but then he got it rolling, lighting it up for 33 over the final 36 minutes of Game 2. And after committing 3 turnovers in the first 12 minutes, he only had 1 miscue in the final 3 quarters. Here's what some of the Spurs thought, starting with Manu Ginobili.
Every possession counts. I mean, we took care of the ball much better than in Game 1. And we were in a good spot. I mean, if LeBron gets hot and starts making shots like that, it can happen. But we were still in the game, and down the stretch, we couldn't execute well. Bottom line is that it was a very close game. In the last 2 minutes, they executed better.
Obviously, we kind of played into their hands by not moving the ball like we have been. I think guys just trying to make the right play and taking care of the ball down the stretch instead of kind of moving it and make them move. So that'll be an adjustment for us. We'll try to clean it up a little bit and hopefully play better in the next one.
Well, we know it's going to be a long series, and every game is going to be very tough. And we just have to be ready to go and be strong mentally. And we just have to stay positive, and it's going to be a long series.
Heat have now gone 47 straight playoff games without a losing streak. 3rd longest streak in NBA history. Only the 60s Celtics and the 90s Bulls have had a longer streak. If they can avoid consecutive losses the rest of this playoff run, they'll win their 3rd consecutive title. From San Antonio, here's the NBA Countdown Crew.
3 days of fluids, IVs, rest, and a ton of criticism. But LeBron responds in Game 2. And the Heat get by the Spurs to tie this thing up at 1 game apiece. Welcome back inside AT&T Center. Bill Simmons, Doug Collins, Jalen Rose. I'm Sage Steele. All right, Jalen, you called it 40 points. So LeBron James failed. Only 35 on 14 and 22.
That guy.
3 for 3 from downtown. Your thoughts overall on this performance, especially considering what happened in Game 1?
Adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. And he saw on social media LeBroning and people teasing him about leaving the game with cramps. But how do you respond in Game 2? He came out terrific. He was offensively aggressive, 35 points overall, led the team in rebounds as well, made the quality basketball play when he needed to, whether it's passing a hockey assist or the direct assist. He played a complete all-around game, and when your best player does that, it allows Bosh to make a timely 3. It allows Lewis to make timely plays, even though their bench was outscored by 25 points. He was terrific, and also he guarded multiple players at multiple positions at multiple times of the game. Continued to attack the paint in the first half, took a perimeter, especially in the 3rd quarter.
Well, you know, he continually, as you says, Jay, he makes the right play. He trusts his teammates. For a superstar, he will make the play and give the ball to the open man. He did it once again tonight. They were down 1. He dribble penetrated. He hit Chris Bosh, who had not attempted a 3 all night. It's the same 3 he missed in Indiana in Game 5. He knocks it down tonight, and here we'll see the play right here. Watch this. They're down 1. Drive, kick, knock it down, and they never trailed after this. Trusting Chris Bosh to make that shot. And I just want to piggyback on his defense, too. He guarded Tony Parker in the 4th quarter, kept him out of the paint, and took him and made him ineffective when the Spurs needed him coming down the stretch.
Yeah, I thought it was a typical great LeBron game. He's not the guy who comes in and scores 55 and shoves it in everyone's face like Jordan is. He's the guy that does it in all kinds of ways. He had 33 points, 9 rebounds in the last 3 quarters. Guarded everybody in the court. And I never thought of it like he's going to respond to the criticism. First of all, I don't think he reads pretty much 98% of it. I'm sure he's aware. This is a guy who's been the most criticized athlete probably since Will Chamberlain. I think this stuff bounces off him at this point. The thing that I think bothered him was he got those cramps, and it cost him game 1. Yeah. And I think he's such a good teammate that he feels like, oh, man, I cost him the game. I'm going to make it up to everybody, this thing. That's the response. I don't think it's like, hey, Internet, stop it. I'll show you who the best. I just don't think he's wired like that. I think he stopped being that guy 5 years ago.
He says he shuts down all social media, does not read anything, hasn't since mid-April. And you know what? He's smart to do so, a veteran in that way.
Everyone should do that.
Yeah, you know what? We all should. We should learn from LeBron. You're pretty good at that. Sticking with you, Jalen, because turning point, there's always a turning point in every game, especially games of this magnitude. Take us to the flagrant on Mario Chalmers, on Tony Parker, and what you think that did to this game.
You can't beat the Spurs if you don't disrupt them. Emotionally and physically, they stay in the moment. But also, if you create some chaos, maybe you have a chance. And this elbow right here for Tony Parker, I always felt of as a player, if you're not hurt from the waist down or from the neck up, get up. Okay, because now everybody has to come and carry you off the floor, so to speak, and then you go to the line, you miss 2 free throws, and Tim Duncan misses 2. Everybody's watching on your basketball team. I think if he jumps up, he's like, I'm cool. He goes to the line, he makes his free throw. I think that rejuvenates his basketball team.
That had a galvanizing effect, I thought, on the Heat, and the opposite on the crowd, because from that point on, they missed the 4 free throws. It was a little Nick Anderson-ish. LeBron comes back, hits a 3, and San Antonio wasn't the same team. They only had 3 made threes in the last 7 minutes of the game. Stop getting in the paint, no more dunking. Different game.
Well, now they got to go to Miami and find a way to win. Miami, once again, loses 1. They find a way to win. They don't lose 2 in a row.
They almost never do.
Although the LA Kings are still more impressive.
Had to get that in, Simmons, didn't you? The Heat snapped the Spurs' 9-game home winning streak, and now, yeah, they get to go to South Florida, where the Heat are 8-0 this postseason. Game 3, Tuesday in Miami.
Well, not since 1902, when Willis Carrier designed the first modern air conditioning unit, has the AC been discussed so much, especially in sports. One could argue it was the Spurs MVP in Game 1. Game 2, the temperature inside the AT&T Center in San Antonio was a comfortable 64 degrees. Now it was just about basketball, and Sunday LeBron answered with 35 points, and Chris Bosh hit the shots that gave Miami the lead for good. Here's Mark Schwartz.
Well, Matt, in Game 1, he put his cramps in these finals, but in Game 2, LeBron James put his stamp on these finals. He was hydrated, motivated, and rejuvenated. Early, he attacked the rim. Then, in the third quarter, he drained 6 of 7 jump shots, 2 from distance, putting on a clinic from the perimeter and punishing the San Antonio Spurs, burying daggers as well as the images of his agony when his body failed him in Game 1.
It's just like when he got in foul trouble against Indiana. He's going to come out and have a big game the next game. And we knew he would have a big game. Just a matter of time of him breaking out.
For me, once I get into a good groove, you know, I feel like everything is going to go in.
I don't count anything out when it comes to LeBron. You know, he's capable of doing anything out there on the floor. You know, he's aggressive, and we just got to fill in the gaps.
Put some pressure on their defense in the second half. They backed up off me, and I shot it. And, you know, it was that easy for me in the sense of don't overthink it, you know. And, you know, they give me space, I shoot it. You know, they get up on me, I try to drive and make plays for me and my teammates.
James says he did not stray much from his usual routine as far as fluids and electrolytes, but he did make a couple of changes. In fact, he wore shorter tights, much like the ones he wore when he reviewed the film of his Game 2 of the 2012 finals at Oklahoma City. And he began his day with an 8 a.m. yoga class with 3 other people and a little kid at the resort in which the Heat stay. No, it was not hot yoga, said LeBron. In fact, at one point, it began to rain, just like the jump shots, Matt, that he was pouring down on the Spurs.
LeBron will have a yoga endorsement by week's end. LeBron had his 11 35-10 playoff game Sunday night in San Antonio since his first playoff appearance, which came in 2006. That is by far the most by any player in the NBA. Second on the list, Kevin Durant with 4.
Incredible competition looking more edible. Waging war with a law gonna be regrettable. People like you are so easily forgettable. Playing against me, son, your talents ain't accessible. I'm sick of you. You can't defeat my strategy. That goes for your whole team, boy. It's a tragedy.
San Antonio Spurs had won 9 in a row at home this postseason. That comes to an end thanks to Chris Bosh's big 3. Here's Sage Steele and company with more.
18 points, 15 rebounds by Tim Duncan. It was his 157th double-double, tying Magic Johnson for the most career playoff double-doubles, most all time. But it wasn't enough as the Heat get the job done against the Spurs in San Antonio. This series is all tied up. Bill Simmons, Chuck Collins, Jalen Rose. I'm Sage Steele. Coach, I start with you about the coach in San Antonio, Greg Popovich. What does he need to do now to go to Miami, where they haven't won in a long time, and get this win?
Well, a couple things. I thought the Miami Heat hurt them with a 1-3 screen roll when LeBron is the 3-man setting the pick to try to get Tony Parker involved, get him confused, maybe switch it. LeBron get into the paint. Sometimes he was a ball handler. Sometimes he was a screener. I also thought he posted more tonight. They're going to have to talk about him getting in the paint. And on the other side of it, offensively, they got to figure out when Miami starts switching. I thought the ball started sticking, and then they got late in the shot clock. And with LeBron on Parker, they're going to have to decide what they're going to do.
I was having flashbacks to the last few games of the finals last year with San Antonio, how hard it was for their guys to create. It wasn't, if Parker wasn't getting anything, nobody else was doing anything. I thought they played Duncan too many minutes in game 2, too. He played 38 minutes, which is just too many for him at this point. But the whole season was geared around small ball, what to do at the end of these games if Miami ratchets up defense. And instead, they got frozen. They just started throwing up threes. That's a real concern for me if I'm San Antonio.
The strength of the Spurs is, too, their big 3 who showed up, 68 total points.
Yes.
And it's their depth. And I call it the next 3. Kawhi Leonard, along with Boris Diaw and Danny Green. They need those 3 players to play well and play efficiently. They only totaled 25 points. And here you see Kawhi Leonard. He's the future face of this franchise, and he has to work defensively guarding LeBron James. He had a couple of uncharacteristic fouls, and he never really played himself into this series in the first 2 games. They're going to need him to play a lot better because he's a terrific two-way player.
And also, they were trying to hide Wade around. Wade's defense has not been that good this series. They were hiding Wade on Diaw at one point in the last 2 minutes. And, whoever Miami's hiding on one of their guys, you got to take advantage of that. Boris Diaw should be taking Dwayne Wade down the low post. Use what they're doing against them.
You heard what Manu Ginobili said on the podium after the game, too. He said, we forgot what got us here. So as efficient as the Spurs can be, hey, nobody's perfect, and they proved that in Game 2. They lost to the Heat in Miami in January, 3-5 on the road this postseason. It'll be a busy 48 hours for Greg Popovich and company. We'll see you in Miami.
Stephen A. Smith, Michael Wilbon there in San Antonio with more, who saw it all go down.
Sensational game 2, Mike Wilbon, no doubt about that. A lot of storylines. Chris Bosh, big-time shot. San Antonio Spurs, maybe a defensive lapse at the end of the game. But in the end, to me, what it comes down to is King James, LeBron James, reminding the world why he's the best player in the world. 35 points, 10 rebounds, hit all 3 of his three-point shots, didn't commit a single turnover in the last 3 quarters. This game was about LeBron James coming out and making amends for whatever rhetoric people wanted to throw in his direction following Game 1, and cramp gate is what we want to call it. Your thoughts?
Well, LeBron James had 2 entire days to sit around San Antonio and hear how awful he was, hear how soft he was, hear about cramp gate, how everybody else would have played through these things in every other sport. Stop. LeBron James is the best player in the world. And I suspect, to me, this is very predictable. outcome, not just in terms of the game, but how it played out, Stephen. LeBron James is going to have a great game. This is what great players do over the history of the NBA. And that part of it is not a surprise. It's almost a formula. Truly great players. We heard Eric Spoelstra say, put their fingerprints all over the game. That's what LeBron did. In the third quarter and early in the fourth, when this game was sort of back and forth, LeBron James took the game over. And even though the Spurs got even and even had a lead for a brief moment, it was LeBron James's game. And, you know, what's interesting is we talked a few days ago about how, passing to Chris Bosh in the corner, I want to see him take that shot. We heard that in the Indiana series, right? Well, he passes to Chris Bosh this time. It results in a three that puts Miami ahead for good in this game. LeBron James makes the right basketball play. The result may not be the result Miami wants all the time, but I'm not going against LeBron James when it comes to judgment or execution in these enormous games. And by the way, Miami, now 13 straight times they've answered a playoff loss with a victory.
One of the other things that stood out in my mind, Danny Green didn't have a big-time game, hit a few three-pointers, but didn't have a big-time game tonight. Manu Ginobili had 19 points, but not 11 assists, just 4. A guy like Kawhi Leonard being drained to some degree. Why? Because he's got to defend LeBron James. So as a result, you can't expect him to be but so much offensively.
And he can't help Tim Duncan in the post. And Tim Duncan needs some help.
There you go. That's right. Absolutely. Because he ain't getting it from Tiago Splitter. I mean, is that fair to say? Is that fair to say? He's not getting it from Tiago
Splitter. A couple of moments.
Come on now.
But, you know, Stephen, one of the things I think that'll get lost, Tim Duncan got off to a fast start, a really fast start. I think he hit 5 of his first 6 shots in game 2, and then 2 of 8 the rest of the way. That's not going to cut it. And the fact is that Miami really has outplayed San Antonio for 3/4 of the first game. LeBron wasn't out there in the fourth quarter, most of it. And then when it counted in game 2, now it's a 1-1 split, but it's going to be incumbent upon the San Antonio Spurs to play with the same sort of urgency. I don't want to say desperation because it's not that time, but urgency in Miami that Miami played with tonight in San Antonio in game 2. So there's some questions about San Antonio now that they have to spend a full day and a half answering.
Now it's San Antonio that has to go on the road, and they've got to win one of these two, Mike, as far as I'm concerned, to have a chance of winning this series.
I agree with that. But Stephen, I still think this series is exactly where we thought it would be, exactly where it ought to be, exactly where it would be if you're paying attention to these two teams and what happened in last year's finals. But I think we're going to see this again. We're going to see a split in Miami. We're going to get 2-2. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but that's the kind of back and forth that the two best teams in the league ought to produce, and that's what they've produced to this point.
Bottom line, Mike Wilbon, Stephen A. Smith, both of us expect a 7-game series. And over the first 2 games, we've seen absolutely nothing to change our minds.